me do a little retweet. Automatically posts. Okay, not there. No, I don't see the. Day night. But the stream is not. Really? Why don't I see it on? I want to retweet it. Talking about things that I don't. Yeah, see, I'm not crazy. should I wait for us to sort this out? How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, let's go. What a beautiful day in Vancouver. I think it was sunny earlier. It's been sunny like all week, I think. Pretty nice. Mighty real? What's really mighty real? Oh, yeah. Can't guarantee that you'll feel any sort of way after what you hear tonight, but try to leave. I'm just gonna wait for minor technical difficulty to be. I can do. I don't think I can do a new post. I can just post. What happens if I just post the link of the tweet? It worked, yeah. I think. No, it looks good on. Let's wait. I see it on Decontrol. I didn't look at my own profile. It looks great. Okay, we have 15 people tuning in. Look at that. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Ethereum Vancouver live at Decontrol. Anybody not been here before? I think we're all OGs. Cool. Let's see. One thing before we start. We have. So I'm Christian. My Twitter X is 0xcrouton if you wanted to follow me, and we also have Ethereum Vancouver, which is the event here tonight, and then Decontrol is the space. As some of you may or may not know, the building's getting torn down, so we're getting basically evicted at the end of March, and we're. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to look like. With it, I would have a neon sign at least. That's cool. This was like AI generation. I just made these slides. I think that this is pretty cool. This like Ethereum city vibe, and with the mountains in the background, really captured the essence of Ethereum Vancouver. And then this pretty cool Decontrol one. Anyway, so that's Decontrol at the bottom. That's like the hello at decontrol.w2ftf email. We're actively looking for another space. Maybe actually, what's the update on finding a new space for Decontrol, and how can people like maybe help out in that mission? We got Tangle's going to talk for a sec here.
Hello, everyone. Okay, the latest update is we've been actively looking at new spaces. We've engaged a handful of real estate agents that have been doing the legwork for us. So today we viewed probably 5 or 6 different locations. We've got a bit of a short list going already with 2 spaces that we are quite thrilled with, I think, right now, or could work, I should say. We're trying to do some collaborative efforts with the super team from Solana. They are, they're going to have, they have demand for a full-time space as well. So we'll likely look at kind of we're looking at 2 floors, basically, of taking 2 floors out of a building. So there's still, some separation between it, but there will be a little bit of, a little more collaborative efforts and working together to be able to put this deal together. So things that are either close by here on Hastings, so just a couple streets over. We've also looked at some stuff on Water Street. That's been some interesting stuff. We are open to other things. We've looked at some stuff that was a little bit into Railtown, which seemed a little too industrial maybe and needed a bit extra work. One spot that I really liked was East Cordova, but it was just a little too... I don't know that many people would be too excited about that area of town. Although it's not that far away, it's just like a little bit too rough for now. Perhaps that'll change into the future, but we've got some really good stuff lined up so far, and ideally we have something locked in so that we just exit here and basically straight into the next place is what we're looking for. So we're out of here. March 31st is the final date. April 1st is to be involved there. So basically at this time, we've engaged a handful of real estate agents and companies as well. So if you know of somebody that's more of a kind of a one-off thing or has like kind of a mom and pop deal or just kind of know about some sort of a situation that maybe is off market, because a lot of the stuff that we're on market that we're seeing through websites and whatever, we've explored a lot of that. So if you know of something that's off market or know somebody that might know somebody or has a space that might work, and we're kind of looking for more co-working / dedicated offices, dedicated desks, still want to have the event, kind of this seminar. We're referring to these now as seminars and small assemblies. So we like our seminars and assemblies. We, needing that for some space too, and keep that in mind. And then, with the super team, obviously they're having a lot more kind of dedicated or hot desks is what they're looking for. The square footage would be minimum kind of 2,000 square feet minimum per floor, even going a little bit larger if we can. So that's kind of where we're at. Actively involved, actively engaging with this stuff. Like I say, today we looked at 5 or 6 different places already. So yeah, pretty good fronts on that. And then I guess the next part too is if anybody is interested in, either having a dedicated desk, hot desk, maybe even in a small office space, we're thinking about what we can do with offices as well. If that's something that interests you, please reach out to us. Either DM us, myself, Christian, or send an email. hello@dctrl.wtf. Web 2 stuff. We're gonna try it out. This email thing isn't really my favorite, but we have some really talented emailists who are on top of that. So Andrew's really good at email. So we really like that. That's Microsoft. Let's go. So reach out there if that is of interest to you and what what you would be looking for and kind of how much you'd be interested to spend on such a thing, whether it be hot desks, dedicated desks, or some sort of shared office or dedicated office. So those are kind of the 4 things that we could look at, and then probably look at having some sort of membership as well, so that we could have 24-hour access to that, because obviously it's going to be a little different than just our beloved basement. So we'll be upstairs, and if you wanted to have desk and our availability there too. So here, is there a mic? Get a mic. Take it. We got. Yeah, hold it down a little bit. Is it coming on? Just a little bit. Hold it up. There.
Okay.
Is it on? I think we're good.
Good question. Is it? Okay. I was just wondering what a hot desk is. That reminds me of James Brown somehow.
Oh, yeah. Hot desk is basically a desk that anybody can use, whereas a dedicated desk would be like your desk, and it's sitting there and it's waiting for you, and you have your monitor set up, your whatever, if your little trinkets, your little special things. All those would be dedicated to you. So that's kind of the difference there. So there, public toilet, keeping it warm. Okay, anyways, that's kind of the latest update, I guess. Ideally, April 1st, we are in a new location, ready to rock and roll. trying to put shit together to make this happen. Reach out however you want. If those things interest you, because we are going to need to, do a little bit of, we're trying to offer this to, grow and expand rather than just being the basement here, as much as we love it and have enjoyed it. Trying to move up in the world and eventually working towards, do this for a year type thing and then aim for, larger kind of maybe expansion, whether it's expanding into more build or more space, different space. Who knows? Maybe we're going to buy a building. Who knows? Lots of dare to dream things. Okay. Any questions, further things on that? Wicked. All right. Keep it going.
Thanks. Yeah. So I'm really excited for us to be in a building with windows, and as much as we love the basement. So yeah, any help is appreciated on that. Just wanted to say this is going to be one of the last ever presentations or events in this space. We've got like a month and a half left, whatever. I'm going to be in Denver for the next 2 weeks, so a bunch of us will. So yeah, not going to be too many more things happening here. So take it all in while you still can. Okay. So the context for this talk, which I've titled "Rewarding the Real Ones: Defining Meaningful Community Outcomes." So I'm going to ETH Denver conference in Denver next week, and I'm doing a presentation at the main event. This is my presentation, right? And I'm not really prepared for it, so I thought what I would do is come here and just kind of talk about some things that I think are interesting, that I have real experience in, and we'll see if we can get you on board with the topic after in a sec here. But you're basically the guinea pigs for my ramblings on this particular topic, because these are my 2 slides for today. You saw this one already. Don't forget to contact us. And then this cool title slide. So I don't have any more slides that say other things than this. You'll have to get used to these words. Okay, so the context here is, so I guess some more context that's really timely, because I work for a company, Superform, that's building a DeFi app, and we just launched our token 2 days ago. So which is a pretty significant milestone in the life cycle of such a company, right? Which it's just very topical, because I submitted this application to ETH Denver 2-3 months ago probably. And the way I'm thinking about it now is very different, having lived through this pretty crazy experience, to be perfectly honest. And the general idea when I first created the topic, so part of my job is managing the Superform community. And if you've been in the DeFi trenches at all, or any Discords, there's crypto has this unique community concept to it, which it's super interesting economically when I've really zoomed out and thought about it. And actually Vitalik just made an interesting tweet today that we can look at too, that was surprisingly relevant to this topic as well, just rewards, incentives basically. But so the way it works is in crypto, it's super easy to launch this token that is, what does a token actually mean? It's somewhat like a stock where I have some ownership claim to something in the company, maybe to influence its direction, not the company, but the decentralized protocol the company's building, and I can influence its direction in specific ways, or I have some claim on the profits generated by this protocol when people are using it, these trading fees or performance fees or something. And this one thing you often do, it's so easy, this is programmable money, so I can just kind of send it into the world whenever I want, and there's some legal considerations, but it's not as onerous as launching a publicly traded equity. There's a lot more paperwork probably, and that is a legal claim on cash flows and on influencing the board of directors at a company. So tokens are kind of wishy-washy in that, but generally there's some sense of ownership, or I get something for holding this, or there's some tokens have Hyperliquid's a good cool token that takes 99% of the revenue of Hyperliquid and buys the token. So if I hold the token, ideally it goes up in value because there's so much people are using this app, it's generating fees, and the fees are going to this token to buy the token, and the price goes up. So maybe I want to hold it just for that reason. It's kind of like when a publicly traded company buys back their own shares, or even just like instead of paying dividends, like a lot of companies just retain cash flows and use that to grow the business, and that increases the value of my stock. So it's just by holding this token, I ideally make money based on the activities of the protocol or the community or whoever. But it's like not as like legally defined. Anyway, that's a bit of a rant, but point being, this concept exists, and it's really easy to launch these tokens. And a common thing in crypto is to build a product, and I need users to test my product. I need to show to investors that I have like traction. So I want people to use this to like trust. These are mostly financial products. I want people to like trust me with their money, leave their money in my platform. And like the thing that incentivizes people to do something is free money, right? Like you can talk about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, but like the best way to incentivize someone to do something, you just like, get them some financial incentive for doing it. So what a typical pattern is, like I'll launch a DeFi protocol, and then I will entice people to use it with the promise of giving them a financial reward, right? And it's typically this like token that I give to you at some point. There's like the token has like the team gets some tokens because they spend all this time building this thing. It's just like, it's like equity, right? Like I spent some time building this product, and I want to have like I want to be rewarded if it succeeds. So I have these tokens, and if what I said was before was like this through some mechanisms of the protocol of success, the price of the token goes up, the team is rewarded for building the thing. There's investors who like believed early and provided capital to fund the team to build the thing, and then there's some allocation for like incentives or continuing to incentivize people to use this thing by paying them money or tokens. And then there's often this airdrop. So like you'll give these rewards as these tokens as a reward to somebody who used your product, or in some way interacted with it or helped you in some way. We'll get into like these things. I'm leading up to it, but people now you have this cycle where I'll launch this is like a very crypto specific thing, right? Like I'll launch this product, and then I will either directly tell people or hint to people that they'll get a financial reward if you use it, and then they're expecting you to give them this airdrop, and you do typically. And you can, some of you are probably familiar with like the typical cycle of how these things work. So that's the context within which this sits. Now, the thing I was thinking about when I first submitted this talk to be presented, as I mentioned before, doing like community management, what does that mean? We have this this group of people who are users, who are like champions, who love Superform for some because it's a cool product, or because we provide them a cool platform place to like be creative and make content and make friends, or we're making them money, for whatever reason. These people they're the community of Superform, which is an interesting stakeholder group, also kind of typical to crypto. This community forms around this group of users that you're incentivizing to use your product via these tokens that you're going to give them at some later date. And then, so the question was like, how you're going to reward people through either this airdrop initially, or you have maybe some other tokens set aside to pay people for basically how do you're incentivizing people to do things that are beneficial for the company or for the product or for the protocol. Or maybe, you have cash flows now, so maybe somehow you redirect cash flows, or VC capital. Generally, you have cash, or you have tokens, equity in your not equity, but pseudo equity in your protocol. In some cases, all tokens are different how they're designed that way. And how do you distribute this to people in a way that makes sense? Like, especially the token that you want to go to aligned people who won't just sell it, who will like hold it and be your investors and holders and like support you in your mission. how do you like define who those people are and make sure that the tokens end up in their hands? And an easy way that's like pretty typical is just based off capital. So in Superform, I put my money in the vault, and the vault is this DeFi investment product, right? That it's a decentralized, non-custodial smart contract. I deposit money in it, and then it does things with my money to like earn yield, interest, and then that money is returned to me. And an easy thing to do, like how do we measure success at Superform? TVL is a metric. That's total value locked, is a DeFi term for kind of like assets under management of this decentralized strategy. And that's a big one that, say, like an investor might look at when they're deciding if they're going to like invest in either in your company's equity or in your company's token or both. They want to see the TVL going up. That's a measure of like traction of your project, which interestingly like is also very gameable. You can just pay people to deposit in your protocol either with your tokens or with cash. So the whole point, how do we like, there's a lot of like fugazi stuff going on here, you can see. And so, okay, so but going back to my point, the main way we can reward people is like a direct measure of their capital. Like if you put more money in this protocol, if you trusted us with your money, if you put money at risk, like you should deserve some kind of reward for doing so under this universe where we're like taking this token and giving some to early adopters and people who generally helped us out. But then another set of people, not in the financial realm, are this like community where, what do? They don't have a lot of money necessarily, but they are your biggest fans. They create content and memes and videos. They're on Twitter, social media, like talking about how much they love you. They're using your product. They're giving you feedback. They're finding bugs. They're participating in the activities that you throw, any like events or initiatives, campaigns. They're a part of it. They're marketing, free marketing, right? Eventually you're paying for it, is the idea. But so these are a lot of less like tangible activities that you can do. And getting back to the whole point of this talk, or at least what it was going to be, I still don't know exactly what it's going to be when I'm in Denver next week, but how do you take all of these things that people are doing that are like beneficial to your goals, which is what are we doing? We're trying to build a product that's valuable to society, with like a lot of users and a lot of capital, and is easy to use. This is like just great product experience. We have a token with a lot of stakeholders who have a vested interest in the price of the token going up. So like that's kind of something that we're trying to do as well. How do we get people to do the things that help us do that, and how do we like reward them for doing that? And then going to this like token, which is like this piece of ownership in what you're building. How do you make sure that goes into the right hands? Especially when we have these intangible things like content creation, or do I have this Discord role for like doing this thing or voting in this proposal or whatever it might be. So that's what I was thinking. Does that make sense? Sorry, I was just like yapping there. Does that make sense? Do you guys on board with that? Is that something you want to like talk about a little bit? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Christian, great. Like, it is a fugazi of diving deep into why TVL matters, why these DeFi protocols, one is more superior than the other than maybe a few technical reasons. And like that generally is community, whether you look at community as rich community or numbers or bots, maybe even AI agents in the near future. And I think where I'm most interested that you would take this is like there's probably like at least 2 to 3 different proposals I would almost think that you need to put forward. Like, do you have any thoughts on like how to solve it? Because if we look at something like Aave, like they're facing the huge issue of labs versus DAO. and who actually has ownership of the all that TVL that has been locked up there for greater part of 5 years now. And yet in the meantime, Aave's token is still in a free fall because they can't figure that shit out. Meanwhile, Uniswap is doing almost something entirely on the other direction. Like they're both moving almost in opposite directions of like how they're trying to align token with labs. And I'm curious, does like Superform have an answer to that? And if so, like I'm super excited to hear something like that because that's the existential crisis a lot of these DeFi tokens are actually facing.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting like rabbit hole you could go down. So you see BlackRock bought some Uni tokens. Yeah, so that's interesting. Total aside, but some cool like institutional interest in this like that was like the first airdrop, wasn't it? Uni, I think might have been. Yeah, that was the one that kind of kicked it off. That was like the one the most memorable. I didn't get any money from them, but I just remember it was pretty cool times. That was a different time, right? Like, but that's actually a good example. I'll get to your thing in one second. I just find that's interesting in the context of this. Like, how did Uniswap decide who to give a bunch of tokens to, and like, was that? I can only speculate. Like, what were their objectives in like who did they want to hold these tokens? What metrics did they use to decide who got the tokens? I assume it was pretty much based on like on-chain stuff, and maybe it wasn't even that like complicated. Maybe it was like you use Uniswap, here's some money, right? But or 20 that was just a flat amount per wallet for like using it. Yeah. Anybody who touched it got the same amount, right? Is kind of how it worked. Yeah.
I for some reason I thought it was, or maybe somebody there was some limits, and they were like, I remember reading about this. Maybe it was Ledger Status. He was saying how like he was $20 short or something on a bunch of wallets that would have hit or something. I thought there was a metric, and maybe I'm just making that up, or maybe that was a meme. But I thought there was like a little bit of a. Well, maybe not.
I wish I had that information in front of me right now, but.
Yeah. Yeah. GPT.
Oh well. Okay. September 1st, 2020. Only wallets that did at least one of the following: swap tokens provided LP, redeemed or held. Do you remember Unisocks? That was fun. 400 Uni per eligible address that ever called the V1 or V2 contracts. In addition to the 400 Uni, historical LPs received extra tokens. The LP bonus was calculated based on the amount of liquidity you supplied and for how long you provided it on a per second basis. Okay. So that's like direct linear incentivization for your capital deployed, like I was talking about before. And then there's this NFT here. It was an NFT, no, it was a token. I think it was in ERC20, right? The socks for ERC20. Users who either held socks or redeemed it for physical merchandise, because was it an NFT? Maybe it was an NFT. It turned it into an NFT after you, okay. And you got real socks, right? That was the whole gimmick, right? Okay, well, that's a fun thing to do, and right? So, and this is an interesting case study, right? Okay, cool. That's nice to know. Okay, back to your point. It is interesting that whole like so like the way that these things get set up. Again, this will be kind of like a tangent, but it's still a cool thing to talk about, right? Like you start with this labs entity that it's like a dev co, right? Like I'm hiring a bunch of people to like build a product. And the product they're building in the crypto world is like this like decentralized or like aspiring to be decentralized protocol. What does that mean? The team building it does not have like, they're contributing to it, but they don't have direct control over like the key parameters of the protocol or the funds that the protocol generates, right? Those are distributed to. Now you have this and some of this is like trying to get around legal restrictions, right? Because because tokens are very different than shares in a company. You can't just like launch one in some places in the world. It's like, it's a dicey, really gray area. So there's these like more elaborate legal structures where there's like an offshore foundation that you set up, and the foundation is who owns the smart contracts and owns the revenue generated by the protocol. And then often the foundation is like working in the best interest of like the labs entity, because you have the people who created the thing running that mainly. And so the foundation will typically can either pay like for the labs to if the labs needs runway to keep building, or like in a more decentralized structures, there's like a DAO that will like grant money to contributors for like participating, and then eventually you can have this like DAO entity set up, because now we're saying, so I hold this token, so I have some like rights over something. What does that mean? I can there can be a vote for changing the fee switch was a big Uniswap one, right? Like Uniswap the protocol charged no fees, but there was a thing built into the protocol where if I turned as governance, if all Uniswap token holders collectively decided, they could turn on this fee switch, and now there's everyone who swaps through Uniswap pays a fee that goes to token holders, basically. And that's one example where like if I hold a token, I can vote for that to happen. That's what happened. Like for a long time, there was the governance wouldn't have voted it through, but eventually this happened, and the Uniswap token holders decided to turn on this. It's a pretty important thing. Like, does the protocol charge fees, and what do we do with those fees? Like, pretty big thing for this protocol. But yeah, like James was talking about, there's like this tension between you have the labs, which is like the centralized like company that built the product and really like has most of the control over things going on, and then you have this more decentralized structure that develops over time. There's many the spectrums for how this all works, and then you have this like tension. Aave is an interesting case, right, where they there's a lot of like James was saying, there's like a lot of you're saying tension between who actually owns, who has claim on protocol revenues, and how are these things used, and that Aave is like a pretty developed DAO, right? Like it is one of the most like actual like functional and decentralized DAOs that exists. Another interesting example is Morpho, because Morpho disbanded the labs entity or something like this. Like there's more labs equity. It's just the token, right? Equity doesn't exist. So in that case, I don't know how Morpho governance is going, right? But lots of different cases. How is Superform thinking about this? That's interesting. So we just put up a first governance proposal, which is, right now the protocol earns fees, and those fees go to the foundation, and the foundation has some discretion of what is to be done with those fees. That's the setup for now. And then there's a parameter within the protocol that governance has the ability to vote on, and that is essentially directing a percentage of revenues to the staking vault for the token. So what that looks like is the protocol earns fees in USDC, in Ethereum, wrapped Ethereum, and whatever it's earning fees in, depending on the vault, and then we'll swap that for UP tokens, and then give that to the staking vault, which then increases the value for, like, essentially gives stakers more money, which is so that's a mechanism baked into the protocol. So that's like one thing that just happened. So it's kind of like the first step of like, okay, giving this group of people control, or like they have some like power over these parameters that have been built in the protocol, right? But that's a long way away from having this like DAO that has claims over all the IP and assets, right? So like the IP exists within the foundation, and how do we get to this point where these token holders? So there actually is a progressive decentralization roadmap. Actually, wait, I don't know if I can find it for you. Yeah, go ahead, Cole.
Why did you, maybe, I'm not sure if you want to talk about this, but why did you decide to start with the fee on and not have that a parameter that token holders could vote for? I'm kind of curious if that was a discussion. That
Right.
happened.
Yeah. So Superforum just launched V2 back in September, and V1 was launched in like January 2024, and we had this decision that was like Superforum V1 will charge 0 fees for the entirety of his existence. Because basically, as soon as we launched V1, we knew V2 was going to come at some point because V1 was not as like extensible and flexible, so there was always going to need to be an upgrade. But that's what we said. We just like to maximize like user adoption. It was like no fees, and then the whole point was, okay, once we get to V2, that's when we're going to monetize. The labs entity needs runway, needs capital to continue to build the thing. Where's that money coming from? It can come from investors, but you can only raise so much money, or it can come from the revenues. But currently, right, the revenues go to the foundation, and then that is either directed back to the token holders, or supporting the labs and continue to build. So yeah, that answered your question, right? Yeah. It would have been interesting, if we had there's a lot of different situations, and Uniswap was a really interesting one, right? Like that, and it was like years and years before they finally turned on that fee switch, right? But Uniswap Labs had a fee on their front end, right, this whole time. So even though the token holders weren't earning any of that money, the labs entity was paying its bills by having this like fee on the front end, right? And also by having a big grant of tokens from the foundation or the DAO or whoever that they continue to use as runway, right? So yeah, we could have started with it off, but like that was more of a strategic decision to have that no fees in V1 and then turn them on in V2. I was gonna look at where would this be? Might be in the white paper. If it loads, it didn't load for me before. Page not found. Well, whatever. I can't find it. That's fine. I was going to show you like the decentralization roadmap for Superforum, right? There's some cool things. This is totally not the topic of the thing, but I'll talk about it if you're interested. So there's some interesting things that you can do with this token, and that governance can do as well. So the idea is to like bring more of these things online over time, so that token holders have the ability to influence these things and like are like economically involved in it, in the system. And then I don't know if. Okay, wait, I'll go one step at a time here. So one thing is there is a one of the core features of Superforum is this like vault infrastructure product. So in addition to being this like app that I can use to earn money, right? Basically earn money really easy, Superforum. What am I earning money on? It's this vault, right? It's this, like, I talked about these earlier, it's this decentralized, non-custodial investment strategy. I put my money in and it makes money for me. And number one, like anybody can create their own vault product using Superforum, which is then like distributed through our application. So it's like a launch pad for vaults or something like that. And then these vaults can do like almost anything, theoretically. So there's a concept of hooks. If you're familiar with a Uniswap V4, a hook, it's like this smart contract. It's really lightweight. Like it's like this extra like action or functionality that the original protocol can do. So when code is deployed on the blockchain, it's immutable typically, and you can never change it again. So as soon as you deploy something, it's going to become outdated right away. So hooks helps you continuously add new functionality to this immutable thing. And it's just this extra contract that like plugs into the protocol and extends the functionality of what it can do. So with Superforum, you think, what does you want a vault to do? You want a vault to be able to invest in anything, undertake any strategy. You want it to be able to do like on-chain lending strategies. You want it to be able to do like real world asset strategies. You want it to be able to maybe like rate arbitrage, like off chain strategies, cross chain strategies. You want it to be able to do all these things. And so what you can do is you can create a hook, and then the hook adds this like functionality to what you can do with a Superform vault. So by default, it can like deposit into standardized vaults. But let's say I want to do like a Uniswap LP strategy. Right now you can't do that, but anybody could write a hook that allows a super vault to do a LP investment on Uniswap. And so that when we think of going back to decentralization and the DAO and all that, why does this make sense? So there's two, we call them like Merkle trees, but for simplicity, it's like a whitelist of what is allowed to be done on Superform. And the first one is global. So there's like a global set of things you can invest in or things you can do. Like, what is the protocol capable of? It can swap using this DEX, it can bridge using this bridge, it can deposit into this type of vault, it can run this type of strategy, and we can expand that list of things with hooks. And the whitelist is like what hooks are allowed, right? So what can be done on Superform, because technically it's anything with hooks, like literally anything's possible. You can plug into any DeFi protocol you want to run any strategy if you build the hook. But what should be allowed? So actually governance will own this like whitelist of actions on Superform, and if new hooks want to be added to that list, then governance can say yes or no, or remove old ones, and that, so this becomes like a community-owned process of like, what are the functionalities of Superform? And then within each vault, the manager of the vault can then, within that global universe of hooks, can select which hooks are allowed in their specific strategy, and then that's transparently available on chain for the users. So as an example of like working towards having this like external like token holder input on how the protocol itself functions, and then there's technically you could set, because this is a settable parameter, you could set 100% of protocol fees to go towards purchase, like swapping to up and distributing it to stakers. So that anything is possible there, even like 100%. So eventually the token holders can become the pure beneficiaries of the revenue of the protocol, and they're also controlling like this whitelist. They have other like kind of like emergency controls, nothing that can like take user funds, but like what if a vault manager like rugs and just like leaves and stops operating the vault? How do the users get their funds back? And then so governance can take over vault operations in the event of some like malicious actor or something like that. So the question then is like, what does that look like in the future, where we have this like decentralization roadmap where like eventually we have this like fully decentralized kumbaya like ecosystem. We have this like validator network too that's like involved in proving that the value of a share of a vault is what the manager says it is, basically, because it's hard to do that programmatically or deterministically on chain when you have these like advanced off-chain strategies and stuff. And so there's another like decentralized component. Token holders can participate in this like validation, either as like running a validator or delegating to a validator. So setting up all these things, but then, okay, now we have this like labs entity, right? So really what do you have? Like you have the co-founders who built Superform, who own most of the tokens, who and I'm using Superform as my personal experience, but this is like generally applicable, as I talked again before. This whole setup within which we're talking is like pretty typical for crypto companies. And so how does that labs entity look over time, right? Because like for a lot of it is, not speaking for us because we've just launched a token, and honestly there's a lot of centralization still. But for these things that claim to be decentralized, like a lot of is it just theater? Like is it like obviously an interesting example that's gone really far into actually having this like decentralized entity that's fighting with this centralized entity, right? And so how does Superform like avoid that same conflict? You go the Morpho route, and like all the equity is ceases to exist. Now everyone just has tokens. Token holders influence the key decisions, but somebody has to pay the developers to keep the lights on, right? Like that's the main thing. You can't, and decentralized, I'm sure some people here can speak for how decentralized workforce really really ends up being super functional and efficient. so it's a hard thing to properly, and even going back to this, incentivizing a decentralized team of people. That just adds to the list of people you need to pay with this like these tokens and things like. So it's an interesting thing. How does that? I don't know. To answer your question bluntly, like what are we thinking about that? Again, we have this progressive decentralization roadmap where eventually everything is managed by token holders, but in terms of like what happens with the labs, this like equity, this shareholder company, I'm not too sure, but yeah.
I'm wondering if like it comes back to the title a little bit, defining meaningful community outcomes, and you kind of started off talking about the main incentive, the main driving factor that brings people into different protocols, and that's money. I do agree with that, but I think peeling back the onion on everything that's after that is really what is going to define whether or not a protocol is successful or not. Like, what are these other outcomes we're looking for other than monetary gain?
Totally. Right. What do you want people to do?
Unisocks.
Unisocks.
Bring
yeah.
back socks. Like, bring back cool
socks.
ideas. Like, that is the thing that's gonna separate a good, successful DeFi product from one that fails. That's my just take off the top of my head.
Yeah. Which is interesting, right? Like in the context of Superform, and going off of like Unisocks. So some of you might have heard of Piggy Token. So Superform just did an airdrop, right? And the airdrop was given to people based on a bunch of different metrics that we found valuable, right? Like, and we attempted to do this. Whether or not we did a good job of doing this is up for debate, but this was the idea. But we just did this, and we were running this like points program ever since. It's been like a year and a half, I guess, maybe a little more. Because again, remember what I said. You want these people to come and use your product and give you feedback and provide capital. And there's, why would I do that over some other product that's going to do the same thing for me? Well, okay, I want to give you this airdrop, this token, but maybe legally I can't tell you that I'm going to give you that airdrop or token. So what I can do is I can give you points. And the points is just this number on my app that maybe it's based on your participation in the protocol, how much money you gave. Maybe there's a bunch of different types of points and things and calculations and scores and metrics that are like, how valuable were you to as a user or whatever community member to me for whatever these outcomes I'm trying to define. So we did this like 6-month season 1 of our rewards program where basically you put money in Superform and it was pretty elaborate actually, but for all intents and purposes you got points, which were a measure of your participation in Superform. And we did this for 6 months, and we knew that like, okay, we're not going to be able to provide these people with that token, which is that the carrot and the stick to get them to keep participating, perhaps like maybe not, like maybe that was and that's a question, right? Like, you're trying to like incentivize people to do these things you want them to do. How do you do that? Before you can financially incentivize them, I can say, I promise I will financially incentivize you. But that really like warps expectations. So maybe sometimes you're better off like not doing that. That's a whole other thing you could talk about. But we did it, for better or for worse. And then 6 months in, we knew the token couldn't come for a while. Okay, so what do we give these people to like reward them for their participation thus far, when we can't give them like this official token that has these like ownership claims on our protocol and all these things? Okay, what about like meme coins were hot at this time? So we launched Piggy. Because Superform was kind of this like piggy bank. You put your money, you saved your money in Superform, and we had people creating like pig memes and stuff. So we launched the Piggy token, and this was like a fair launch community token that went 90% to community based on how much money they put in Superform, and then 10% like liquidity mining, where like if you put liquidity in the decentralized in the DEX pool, you could get Piggy as a bonus for that. And that was like, a socks kind of thing. It was, like, how do there's like fun gamification in a way to like reward people to keep incentivizing them to do what you want to do. And ultimately, like Piggy, it's tough when you're trying to have this other like token economy that you're trying to manage when you have like a actual token that like investors and team have a claim on, and is like the official token with utility within your protocol. So doing creative things is like an interesting way to like engage people, but then how does that actually in the long run, does it provide you these meaningful outcomes that you're looking for? Unis Socks and Piggy, they're all very different times that they launched in. But ultimately, the Piggy tried to be this like great thing with all these like cool community experiments happening. People were really into it for a while, but it just became like you need like a lot of consistent buy-in. Again, like this is incentivizing people to do things. If there's no financial incentive, eventually, people will just kind of not participate as much, right? Or you can like extrinsically or intrinsically motivate people to want to do it, but it only works for like so long. If there's no like light at the end of the tunnel or something people are like working towards or excited about. So Piggy's an interesting case of trying to do something creative to like reward people. Some people made money on Piggy. Some people, well, it was all free money at the end of the day. Everyone got free money, but people speculated on Piggy and maybe didn't do so well, or you could have you got some Piggy, were you better off like selling or holding on to it? And that's like that goes back to like that's an interesting case actually, like just to like hash on that. We were inspired for Piggy by Purr actually. So Purr is this like Hyperliquid meme coin by the Hyperliquid team. They kind of launched they use it as sometimes like a test token, like it was the first spot token on Hyperliquid. Everyone got like you got a Purr airdrop if you participated. And so it's kind of was this interesting Hyperliquid like beta play. That's like probably down pretty bad right now, but at a time Purr was like, if you got some Purr and held it, and you could have made some good money on Purr. It was pretty interesting. So we had this idea again, like launch this like token to just this meme token with no fundamental value, but if something has no fundamental value, eventually it just goes to zero, unfortunately, despite your best efforts.
And now that we've done a cycle of it, we all know that, and like memes, NFTs, they're fucked. Like they're not coming back in the same way that they came back, I don't think. So we have to determine, we need new shit. We need to like keep pushing boundaries and find out what these outcomes are, other than just things that inevitably are going to trend to zero, and we're just going to keep playing the merry-go-round of jump to this protocol, and chase incentives.
The narrative is revenue. So the problem with tokens has always been like,
but I mean, like Uniswap's like 4-to-1 PDE ratio right now. Like it's down only. It's not like it is a good buy if you look at this as any tech company. It's making like 40 million a week right now, and it's valued at $2 billion. So yeah, like it averages out to like 500 million a year. Like it's actually making a fuck ton of money. They've got a chain. They've got all sorts of reasons why
and BlackRock,
you should want
BlackRock
to own
just
it.
invested in them. Like look at that.
Yeah. It's just there doesn't seem to want to be anybody buying these tokens unless you actually have legal claims. That's maybe a huge caveat that we're still facing.
I think that's what's keeping people away. Like you look at something like Aave and what's happening, and it's like I don't know for certain if I have a stock of a share of Apple, like pretty solid. That's gonna give me claim on Apple cash flows 100%. It's gonna let me vote. I have my one vote in the annual meeting where they send me the mail every freaking time. That bro, you want my one vote when you have 1 million shares? Like, no, get out of here.
They also buy it back. They also buy it back.
Yeah. Apple will buy back the shares.
All buybacks. The only thing that seems to be holding up, and that's because it's so aggressive.
Yeah, but this is revenue. So like, what's a meaningful outcome? Maybe. So, I want the token to succeed. I want the protocol to succeed. What makes a successful protocol? It's like really like it makes money, right? Like at the end of the day, everything we're talking about money. If you want something sustainable, in most cases, it has to provide enough money to like pay for itself and reward the people who are keeping it going. So in crypto, you kind of have this very broad group of stakeholders that you have like very quick access to, right? Like this community. So the feedback cycles can be pretty quick. And so maybe the meaningful outcome at the end of the day is like, I mean, I want the revenue of my protocol to increase and I want the price of my token to increase. And how do we, with this limited set of capital, incentivize the different groups that to make that happen? And it obviously becomes a lot more complicated when you have these like decentralized structures, right? For sure. And you know, I don't know if I have like the perfect answer for this. You know, and I let's look at the Vitalik tweet. I think it's pretty interesting, and maybe it'll make me think of some other things to talk about.
While you're looking for that, some of these other object or kind of plans or objectives that were starting to come to light a little bit last cycle was like kind of rewarding community members with like your points, but then these points will actually be redeemable for something, or because you have X amount of credits, let's call it. A couple that come to mind were like I thought was kind of interesting on an NFT side was like with Campai Pandas or it was Campai? Is that what it was?
Those were real
the
pandas.
Yeah, they used to be called something before that. Yakuza. Oh, yeah. That was bad, so they called them Campai. Yeah. If you held one of those, you had access to, to be able to go to these events, and then you could use X amount of points to spend to go have box seats or go to, a special show or, some theater performance in Vegas or whatever it was. So they had kind of these deals set up in place so that you could use. I have a membership. I'm a member to this club. And I can now use these points, which I've been accumulating because I've been holding my assets to do that. I think there was some kind of shenanigans with that project, so maybe it's not. I haven't
heard
remember.
A lot.
I think they went
the
down a bunch,
pandas.
but for a while, like it made sense. They were
the selling point here, because that sounds a lot like, I don't know, frequent flyer miles, loyalty point.
This is
They're sending
like a
panda
country
memes
club.
today.
It's
Today we got
it's
panda
like a
memes.
country club with
3 days.
all the
Look at
things
this.
baked in, right? But
yeah.
Pandas are alive and well. This is a
I don't know
Valentine's
what the
Day
price
tweet.
is. That was
Time
the
to
other
prepare for Valentine's Day.
thing.
The price? Well, no, we don't look at price.
that's a
Yeah,
good
we don't like a
reminder.
price. But regardless, that was kind of part of it, though, right? Is because what is your membership in order to have access to these things? You have these points that are accruing. And so it's this perpetual points program, too, that I'm kind of interested in or thinking about. Even with Moonbirds, which didn't really go too far. I mean, their first round of things where they were like giving people the fanny packs and whatever, that was one side of it. But then the next part was that they had these talons. They were like fake points. They weren't even real coins or real tokens or anything, but it was basically these points that you could redeem for whether it was artwork or you could have it auctions that you could bid on and whatnot. So I think there was like you're starting to get on the right track of these things or where this can grow towards. But I think at the end of the day, we need to just look back to these current things that exist and have been existing, whether it be credit cards or like Aeroplan. I've actually been like pretty stoked with Aeroplan, And I mean, I don't own anything of fucking Air Canada. I don't know if it's an absolute thing, but I'm now a 35K elite member and I have these like things, these milestones, these achievements, I have these perks and things. And so I don't own any of the protocol or I don't know of the company of Air Canada, but I'm going to use them. I am going to spend money on that protocol. On that company. I got getting my words mixed up here.
You're a loyal user.
But now I'm choosing to fly with them because I'm going to get these perks and because it's actually showing me something. Credit cards, same thing. I was using my Visa card, collecting my Ponzi points, and these Ponzi points are redeemable for airline flights, right? And I've flown multiple flights, all over the world and, within North America using those Ponzi points. And therefore, I am spending real money, or dollars. I'm spending dollars, and whether that's on, whatever product it is, but that's still through that company, through that card, or lost your video there. I'm using it through, let's just keep using the word protocol, right? Whether it be the credit card protocol or the airline protocol, whatever it is. That's actual revenue that is being spent from myself or whoever else. And then you get these kickbacks and little flywheels to keep you going. And I feel like we haven't really locked that in or dialed that in the crypto side, because we're going one way or the other, whether it's, okay, we're going to give you ownership of the company, but then what does ownership mean? And how does that value and benefit you? Or we've just given you points that are for useless shit. Like, I don't need to buy a t-shirt with X amount of talons. I don't really care, or these like, Moonbird tokens or whatever it was, or Canpai Pandas. It was like, well, am I actually going to go to Vegas and sit in an actual show? How many times am I actually going to get to do that? And does it make sense to buy, I think at that time, like some of them are going for like over an ETH, and it's like ETH is, $3-4 grand at that time. Does it make sense to buy into this membership to then go be a part of this special elite thing if I'm only going to use it twice in my life? Or should I just spend $1,000 on a ticket to the show that I want to see, right? So there's kind of these weird, trade-offs for memberships and what that can look like. But anyway, more just to go say, how do we rewarding people with points and doing things? Maybe there's just like perpetual points programs that actually give you benefits to, to the project that you're a part of or the protocol that's there. And maybe that's all that it needs to be. And it's not, giving ownership, because really, does ownership, maybe that's a totally separate thing. And you can just have points that are funding the protocol, and then maybe, are driving activity to the protocol that gives them benefits as compared to just straight token holder revenue. I don't know. There's just some things I've been kind of bouncing around in my brain since I've been trying to get to 50K status this year with their.
I think one issue is that the points programs or the reward mechanism, unless it's staking or something else, is not on chain. Even with our side of Web3 things, because Air Canada can change the terms of your rewards or the credit card arbitrarily, and so can the Web3 side. It's not baked in. Whereas if it was part of the protocol and it was on chain, or at least like verifiable in some way, then the commitment is the commitment, even if it maybe it needs to be altered after some amount of time. We've collected enough data and it's not driving the incentives we want. But I think it's there are hard promises that are available and we're not even using them. Like
so a benefit is like what we have is actually an added benefit where we can show people, hey, this is actually going to happen.
We can make very, very hard promises.
Hard promises.
Almost impossible
that's a good way
to break, but we don't make them.
Right. Well,
I think philosophically and pragmatically, what I'm perceiving is it comes down to a dialectic between the owners, developers, and then the adopters of that. So basically, one way to kind of say democratize it or decentralize it is to have referenda on incentives. So basically, you have a kind of team of developers who kind of brainstorm and they come up with a list of potential incentives. And then you also crowdsource that to the users and get some more ideas on that. And then ultimately, there's a focused referendum based on what people really find the most beneficial in terms of kind of rewards. What rewards do people really want?
What you've just described a DAO from 2022, 21, 22. And most of that has been, for the lack of a better term, a failure. I feel we haven't seen that like play out. Like, especially when you talk about referendums, you're talking about like forums, open forums. I was in the heart of all of that. I've been on, following whether it was the discourse discussion forums that we had to deal with and responses there. Those can come in from anybody, right? And you tried to token gate it or do what you can to get more signal rather than noise. And then you've also seen, we would have like open calls, open discussions that were open to the community, to the public, and generally the right people showed up. We didn't have it's not like we had people that had no clue what was going on. They're generally more aligned with one side or the other, but it just ends up being a real hodgepodge, and it's very hard to line up those incentives to find and going back to how do we reward the real ones, how do we actually get signal from the real ones too. And then we're also fighting back then too, and maybe it's a little different now, it's legal. We didn't have the ability to give somebody revenue, or we can have clarity around the regulation of what we can and cannot do with tokens, with revenue, with whatever, right? Because all of this is very kind of hand wavy as far as like what we can do. Hopefully, maybe at the end of the year, we're gonna get some clarity and clarity and genius clarity. Clarity on what needs to happen here, and maybe that'll help. Maybe we can say, all right, now that we know that we can do this. This is the framework in order to do this. Here's how we do it. But until then, I feel it's a tricky, slippery slope, and even being offshore isn't going to save you sometimes, or is like too risky because you won't have the big U.S. capital interesting you. So I like that idea. I want referendums to work. I want open, decentralized, that kumbaya we mentioned earlier here, systems. But I just haven't seen a really great example of it where it is really we can point to that and say that's how you do it.
Yeah, and sometimes the developers need to put on the dictator hats, basically, that sort of thing, just because the outliers, the public, they don't necessarily know best, in terms of democracy. So, I mean, that's kind of where I say the dialectic, if it theoretically comes to like 51% of the control being in the hands of the developer side, the inner core, versus 49% the decentralized, maybe that's generally the best, kind of balance. I don't know.
There could be.
Then it's just like decentralization theater, right? Like if the labs can just unilaterally decide something whenever the decentralization isn't doing what it should be doing, then like why even have a token, right? I think going back to these airline points, right? Like that's a great question. It's a very interesting instrument. But it's like the default option always in crypto companies, when maybe for a lot of them it shouldn't be.
I think we have seen what comes next, though, like the next iteration of that, and it seems to be outcome markets that are a little bit like prediction market, but they have like some KPI to reach, and those seem to work very well, but they're very short-lived, like on MetaDAO launches. And what they decide to do. And I saw even that they had a fund that like unwound itself after they realized it just wasn't going to keep going. So it seems to not have you can have a token that is involved, but it's almost like a contest, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like some period of competition, and then we either meet the goal or not, and then it unwinds. So I would call them like affinity group rather than like a DAO, because it's not constant. It's always changing.
Yeah,
it's sprinting towards a goal.
The Joe Craze guy called it he had a pretty good name for it. He called it a subjective prediction market.
What, the outcome market?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Subjective prediction market.
I don't know if that clarifies entirely.
No, not really.
Yeah.
But in the context of what he was building, it made sense, right? And it's like
that's a better example. Actually, I haven't looked at Joke Race, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. They've done some pivots. I don't know what they're doing now.
That's more Ethereum aligned, because the one I brought up is on Solana.
Oh no, we don't talk about that here.
Well, I did. Oops.
Or Futarchy, I guess. Fits into this.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Futarchy.
That's the word we're trying to get away from, because it's very confusing.
We don't like Futarchy. Yeah. So, but we did one of those on for Superforum, participated in one, like the Optimism Futarchy, and it was like
butter thing?
But the butter thing, exactly. Yeah. So it was like, so the way it worked was like, I think they were fake tokens. So you didn't actually put up any like real capital, but theoretically you could. And it's like, I'm going to stake capital on my what I think is going to happen. So, okay, here is the scenario. It was like, which of these apps is going to provide the biggest TVL increase to the superchain, which is a collective of blockchains? Which of these apps is going to provide the most TVL within the next 3 months or 6 months? And then there was maybe like 10 to choose from, whatever. And I would vote on which one I thought that was going to be. And then the winner or winners got a grant from Optimism. And then all the money that goes into this pool, again, these were fake tokens, but say we were working with real tokens, I would vote which of these apps is going to give the most TVL. So I vote for Superforum. I put my capital on that vote. And then the Optimism, the governance, whoever was doing this, gives tokens to Superforum as a grant, specifically for that objective of increasing the TVL on the superchain. And then 3 months later, when this market resolves, did Superforum actually provide the most TVL to the super chain? And then if yes, and I voted on that outcome, then I can get some of these the money that was put into this market. So that's why I if that makes sense for a subjective prediction market. But you're betting on what you think is gonna happen, and then even in some cases, in the case of Joke Race, you're putting it's a little less sophisticated maybe, but like there's these contests and there's some outcome you're deciding on or you're voting on, and the winner of the vote, it's the same concept, right? But like the winner of the vote, say it's like which of these, it can either be like a decision like before, like what should we do with this money kind of thing, or it can just be like an opinion market, like whatever, like I think this is the best chain or something, and then I put capital, I commit capital to what I think the best chain is, and then when the market resolves, whichever chain the participants chose was the best, I get a share of everyone's money because I was right. I had the right bet. But that's not like what actually, it's not a thing that happens in the world that I can say whether or not this happened, right? Like yes or no, like which president's going to get elected kind of thing. It's like, what is the opinion of the crowd on this subject, and then if I'm correct in that, I get rewarded. So that's why you call it a subjective prediction market. So it was like not even what I think is true, but what I think everyone else is going to think is true, and I vote on that, and I get rewarded if I'm correct. Which I don't know if that helps with anything when I was thinking about it, but that's what it does. Anyway, so going back to how do you take these decentralized group of people and get them to like come have alignment on like the best way to do something or the best way to distribute incentives? And I think that's like a big question. Like most of the time, this like centralized group of people knows better than the decentralized masses, and they have their own biases and reasons why they want things, and they're probably not like as aligned with the mission. They can be, but it's a whole subject.
I think there's a great quote from Osho.
Yeah.
If you guys remember, I don't know if everybody is familiar with that one, where it's like, for the people, of the people, of the people, for the people, by the people.
Mm.
You know that one? Yeah. That's like talking about democracy, but the people are retarded.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Pardon?
Osho Lincoln.
Lincoln was his last name?
No, Lincoln.
Oh, Osho Lincoln. I see. Yeah. Sorry. I was like, I thought that would be very odd if... Yeah. Paraphrase, exactly.
Have a successful cult? Like, what was their revenue?
Osho? Oh, Osho printed, bro.
Yeah.
Osho
so,
printed
something
big
there,
time. Yeah, he was... Yeah, something crazy like that. Yeah, lots of Rolls Royces. People were just throwing money at him.
You
Killed it.
Study the cult. Then.
Like, we need to study cults, like big time. That's what we're trying to do here, but it's not really working in our favor. So, anyways, maybe we need to be more cultish. Anyways, that's enough on that.
It's almost 8 o'clock. I just realized, so we'll wrap it up in a sec here. I just want to look at this tweet by Vitalik because I thought it was like relevant to what I was talking about. Is that good enough? Okay, hang on. The tweet he's talking about is this one, also relevant. So it's like either incentivize users or you won't have any. No normal. Goes to exactly what I was talking about before, right? Like no normal person ever tests new apps. It's a very small group of people. 99% of people won't waste their time testing random apps by random startups, right? So the only reason that anyone tries your ramshackle app is for personal financial gain. And so the airdrop meta, like projects need to give like 10 to 20% of your supply, which is a huge amount of your token to just give to random people. And if you're gonna do that, like how the hell do you make sure that these people are aligned? That's like a lot of sell pressure. If you give these tokens to the wrong people, they're just gonna sell it. They don't give a shit about you. How do you make sure those go to the right people? Crazy. Let's see. Anyway. He's saying that either reward users or you won't have any, right? Okay, so there's this guy's point. Squiggly-haired Shank said that. And then Vitalik responded to it, which I thought was really interesting. So I see how this makes total sense from a crypto perspective. It makes, but 0 sense from outside of crypto perspective. There are many distinct activities you can refer to when you're incentivizing users. Okay, so he says this. Paying some of your users the coins that your app gets from charging others users is totally fine. It's a sustainable economic loop. So that's what we were talking about before, right? Like the protocol makes money, the protocol takes that money, and then you give it to your users again in the form of tokens, right? So it's just like this loop where here have these tokens, or buys back tokens to make the ones they already hold more valuable, right? So it's just like this. So and then was it in here? Oh, maybe I had it somewhere else. Maybe it wasn't him exactly, but this is like was it not in here? Oh, it was something like forcing your users to become like investors kind of thing, which is what we kind of want. So paying all your users while your app is early with the hope of building this network effect, and then making that money back and more later when the app is mature. And crypto is interesting because, again, we actually have this token that we give to people, and we promise them all these things that the token's going to be able to do, and then it'll be more valuable over time. And so that's it. Like when we pay them, we give the promise of future payments, right? So here's his take right here. So these two things. Incentives that compensate for unavoidable temporary costs that come from your thing being immature are good, but incentives that bring in a totally new classes of users that would not use even a mature version of your thing without those incentives are bad. Which I think those two things are kind of like like both true, right? Like I need to bootstrap this user base, and how do I do that? Bootstrap this protocol. I'm going to say I'm going to give you money in the future, right? Back financial incentives. But if people are purely extrinsically motivated by financial rewards, they're going to do things that aren't necessarily like rational if the rewards didn't exist. So like you're getting these users who don't give a shit about what you're building, would never use it. But you're incentivizing them to do so because people, carrot and the stick. People are going to do things if it's worth their time because they're going to get financially rewarded. What else can we say here? I mean, he said a lot of things. It's all investments, even in shitcoins. Where did he talk? Oh, here. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. I don't know how familiar you guys are with InfoFi, right? But InfoFi recently got wrecked by a change to X, but you incentivized, there's like these big data companies that had like Twitter API access, and they were able to track people who talked about your product, and then give them like a score on a leaderboard. And the idea is, okay, again, going back to these tokens that I give people, I'll give you some tokens for that. But this is like ultimate mercenary capital, right? And Superform actually did this, and we wish we didn't do it. There's way better ways to incentivize people to create content in these like InfoFi campaigns because, you're not actually getting people who care about you. There's some like mechanism they can game, and based on these platforms have some metric for like what makes a good or viral tweet, and they're just going to try to optimize and then disappear as soon as the incentives go away, right? Because they're not aligned, they never were. They never would use your product.
Mercenary.
But, yeah, very mercenary, exactly. In principle, content incentivization is a valuable and important problem. This is something I wanted to talk about more, but there's no time. But how do you do this in a way that actually rewards the real ones, right? Like, I want people to create content. My main goal, my outcome is like a revenue positive protocol that can pump the token, right? And how do I do that? Well, I need marketing. I have this like army of people who love what I'm building, and if I can incentivize them to create content that brings more people, and that there's like the flywheel, more money in the protocol, more fees, token goes up. But it can't be this like InfoFi, this system that incentivizes people to make AI slop content and take the money and run as soon as they get it, and they don't actually care about you. So how do you identify who are the real people creating the content? Like it's a very useful thing to get people to do and incentivize people to do. Like, it's a part of your marketing budget. Look at it that way. But how how do you make sure those tokens go to the right people, especially when you're not just giving them cash or giving them this ownership stake in what you're building? How do you design a system that actually does that properly, like fairly rewards them for their efforts, properly measures their efforts, and then gives them gives those rewards to the right people?
It's like, how do you identify the real people?
Yeah, that's kind of what I still need to figure out. And I'm cooking up on some ideas, but that's a very real issue I'm like looking at right now. And so his final thought here, then we'll wrap up. Like, okay, so the TLDR, the bulk of the effort should be on making an actually useful app. This is historically ignored. It's not necessary for narrative engineering to create a speculative bubble. So before you want to pump the token, what's the best way to pump the token? Not always. In the long term, it's about making a valuable product. In the short term, you can extract a lot of value without building very much at all. But not necessary. So we need useful apps and like successful apps. They make money, and then here's how they're doing it. Like you're not paying users indiscriminately. You're doing like this thoughtful user acquisition. Anyway, he just posted this today. It was like, very relevant because I was going to do this talk, and we just launched our token. It was really timely. But anyway, that's kind of his sign off, and I thank you for listening, and like this was really helpful. And basically, I'm going to try to condense this into something more like structured and logical. And I have 15 minutes on stage at Denver, so I got to figure out how to like take some like meaningful takeaway from all of this, and what do people actually want to hear? Because when I first was going to do this talk, it was like, I kind of have some kind of like formula recipe for how you do this. Like, here are the tools you use for tracking this stuff. Here's like how you identify. Here's how you create this ideal like community member to do these things for you. Here's how much you should give them, how much something's worth. How do you define that? But like, it's such a big challenge, right? Like, I don't even know if I have like the right answer, the right framework. It's so like experimental still. So I think all you can do is look at the cases that exist today and the different things that people are trying. Even if we go as far as like governance structures and incentivizing a decentralized group of people to actually coordinate to build something valuable, how do we do that with limited capital to incentivize them and people fighting over it in different interests? It's like, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer the question after thinking about it more deeply, but I'll think of something. Anyway, we're right at 8. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we can. If you had like a quick one, I could answer it, but it's pretty late, so just wrap it up here. If not, all good. Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate
you. If you don't mind, just fold up your chairs and tuck them to the side. And see you all next week. I guess, yeah, we'll still have some shit on. Well, I won't be here. A bunch of people won't be here, but are you here? Owens? He's not here? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what next week. We're in Denver, so may or may not.